All right, guys, Refined Savage podcast. This is going to be kind of a mini podcast we're going to do for the YouTube channel. Sometimes it'll just be me ranting. Sometimes we'll have other guests in here. Today I've got Zac Papay with me. We'll do these every once in a while and see how they go. Kind of a roundtable discussion. We'll have other people in and we'll talk about different topics. So today we are going to be talking about sports training for young athletes. So we're going to look at some facts and fallacies. You're going to see a lot, especially if you have a youth athlete in any of these sports. We're going to talk a little bit about practice structure, about some of these sports-specific training facilities, and what exactly athletes need as far as training. So, Zac, you were an athlete with me when you first started coming up. What year, how old were you when you first started?
I think I started training with you my sophomore year of high school. But you coached me freshman year, so you're my coach freshman year.
Track and field.
Maybe it was the end of freshman year is when I started training with you.
Right, and I think you were the last class where we had a good group. It was like 2008 when you graduated?
2011.
2011.
Yeah, people always think I'm older than what I am.
Right.
Youngin.
So what I look at when I bring in a new athlete nowadays and before is the specific needs of young athletes in general are not that different across sport levels. So if you bring me a track and field athlete, a volleyball player, a soccer player, a football player, and a basketball player, and a wrestler, young athletes don't vary in what they need as far as training. So you all need to squat, you need to deadlift, you need to bench press, you need to press overhead, you need to do some conditioning, you need to sprint, you need to jump. Where we get into problems is when you see these sports-specific gyms pop up, and they're very, very good at marketing their program. So what they're going to do is they're going to bring you into this multi-million-dollar facility. They're going to have rope ladders and high-tech treadmills that measure your speed, and they're going to have all this crazy stuff that is absolutely not necessary for athletes at this level.
Yeah, it looks good on Instagram.
It looks fantastic.
What it is.
And you impress the hell out of parents when you bring them in. You say, look at this, incredible. And you're only going to have to pay $250 a month for this incredible setup. The problem is I can get more out of an athlete with a power rack in a garage than they're going to get out of these athletes running on these high-speed treadmills and running through rope ladders. Agility training for athletes above the age of 12 is absolutely worthless. We were just talking about this the other day. So if one of the things they're trying to sell you is increased agility, increased foot speed, this kind of stuff, all this is nonsense. Running through a rope ladder or running through a cone agility course is going to get you really good at running through the rope ladder and the cone agility course. But I'll get better results with you working on some lateral speed movement, squatting, deadlifting, working on core training, and jumping a lot. You're just going to be much more explosive that way.
Right, because the best way to build your explosive strength is by raising your absolute strength. Absolutely. And in order to do that, you need to squat, deadlift, bench, all the primary powerlifting movements, I guess you would say. And a lot of these places, I was just having a conversation with my buddy actually this weekend about sport-specific movements facilities where they bring you in and they sell you on the rope ladder, agility drills, or whatever you're doing. They need to have some sort of high clientele that they previously worked with to that's what they're selling you on, that they're going to send you to the NFL. And all these places are like, look, we have so-and-so who played 3 years in the NFL, and this is what we do. And parents buy that bull crap, and then they pay that $300 a month or whatever they're paying to send their kids there, where their kids would be better off if they spend $100 a month, and then they're actually doing weightlifting movements, getting stronger, and through getting stronger, they're going to become faster and more conditioned.
Well, one of the things, and we have a couple in this area that are were high-level high school athletes that went to college, or even there's I think at least one pro caliber guy who owns a facility The problem is, especially with some of these pro level guys, is they are above and beyond anything physically and mentally that you're going to get out of these normal kids. They didn't get to the NFL because they had such stellar training programs.
Right.
They got to the NFL sometimes despite their training programs, but they were such freaking animals and they were so athletically gifted that they were able to get there. One of the things that I really enjoy about the two people that I developed my system through, Judd Logan and Louis Simmons, were neither one of them were out of the gate amazing athletes to begin with. Judd always talks about how he never won a state championship in track.
I don't think he ever made it to a state
never
championship.
made it to a state championship. He didn't even really find that he was good at the hammer until his last year of college.
Right.
You know, Louis Simmons is a guy who is just an incredible worker. He had some of the right structures for powerlifting, but it was really his training program that got him to where he was. So you want to look at these guys that have made something of themselves without the best possible genetics or without the best athletic ability. They were able to through hard training and intelligent design, get themselves into a place where they were breaking world records and going to Olympic games and that kind of thing. So be very wary of the high-level athlete who's selling you a program, because believe me, he is not sitting there at night writing up programs for your kid. He's just a figurehead. He's the gym owner. He's the guy that's going to get you as parents to bring your child into these training facilities, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful gyms. But if I was in that facility, I would probably be using the far corner of the gym, wherever that power rack is, to get these kids better athletes.
So let's switch topics a little bit and talk about what age people should start training, because that's a question I get from a lot of parents. I'm working with their high school athletes, and they say, look, I have this 8-9-year-old.
Right.
What should they be doing right now? What age should I start doing some weight training with them?
We have a great program right now for 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids that Isaac Drost runs out of the gym on a couple nights a week. But it's very basic stuff. It's getting them moving, it's conditioning, it's strongman events, strangely enough, because they don't require a ton of technique. So Isaac can teach these kids to flip a tire in literally minutes, or to lift an Atlas stone. And you see that a lot with little kids who walk into a pumpkin patch and they get over this big giant pumpkin at 3 or 4 years old and pick it up, and they have absolutely perfect Atlas stone technique,
right,
because it's something that we're just ingrained to be able to do. It's very easy to teach them how to do that, as opposed to like a clean and jerk or something like that. Now, I started my son as soon as he was able to walk. So I had a medicine ball on the couch. I'd push it off the couch. He'd walk over, put the medicine ball on the couch. And I would just keep doing that. He would do it for hours.
Right.
And then as he got older, we just slowly moved him into weight training. And it was always a voluntary thing. So, do you want to do this today? If not, hey, hang out in the house. But he got to a point where he wanted to do it more and more. There's very little to no actual fact behind the "you will stunt their growth" argument. You talk to any doctor who has athletic clients, or surgeons, or chiropractors, physical therapists. If they have an athletic background, if they've worked with athletes, they will tell you right off the bat that is a myth. You're not going to stunt their growth. If you look at the Chinese weightlifting team, there's videos of them online, you're not stunting any of their growth.
Right.
These kids are monsters, and they're doing perfect snatches and clean and jerk with weight at 6, 7 years old. We put our kids behind an 8-ball right off the bat because we aren't training them at an earlier age. Now, if you bring your kid in here and he's in that age bracket, he's going to go into Isaac's class, and Isaac's going to work with him. Once he gets 12, 13 years old, and it really depends on the kid, we'll move him into the adult class. We'll do a little bit more on-ramping with them and bring them along, but they're going to be doing the same stuff that you and I are going to do, just at a much lighter weight.
Yeah, I think general movements for younger kids, especially nowadays, is really good thing. So things like push-ups, sit-ups,
Yep.
just air squats, teaching them proper technique, because it seems as if kids aren't getting out and being as active as they used to be.
Right.
And I mean, speaking for myself, working with high school athletes, I have kids that come and throw, and they can't even do an air squat to proper depth. Like they get to a quarter squat position, they start falling over.
Ankles are tight.
Yeah,
hips are tight.
Right.
Yep.
So anything to get your kid moving is normally something I would recommend. Whether it be just activities like basketball, baseball, doing multiple sports, keeping them active all year round, are all really good things to do to get younger kids in shape.
Yeah, and if you look at there's so many quotes from Division I football coaches will say, let your kids play multiple sports. One of the things that drives me nuts is a parent who has their kid in year-round soccer or year-round softball. This is another myth that's going to be sold to you by, and I don't want to call them unscrupulous, they're just not educated coaches. There is no reason that your child needs to swim year-round, especially once they have the swimming strokes down. You need a length of period of time where they can train for that sport outside of the pool. And the same with soccer. We get soccer kids in here all the time that are literally frail. They can't do anything because all they've done is played soccer year-round for years and years and years, and there's no physical training to get them faster or stronger on the field. Softball's another thing. Girls come in here out of shape. They need a break from that. Number one, for their own sanity, just to get away from that sport for a little while, unless you want to burn them out by the time they're in high school. And number two, to give them a time that they can actually train to get better at their sport. I dealt with swimmers for a lot of years, some very high-level swimmers, who we had to look for ways to fool the coach, to get them out of practice, to get them out of meets, so we could actually train them to get better. So I'm actually working against their coach in order to give him the gift of a better trained athlete in order to compete at a higher level later on in the season. You have track coaches who will give you a hard time about a kid lifting weights the day before a dual meet. Where a dual meet doesn't mean anything. In track and field, your season doesn't start at a minimum until conference.
Yeah.
Conference, districts, regional, state. So if you are stopping them from lifting before every dual meet, you're losing days and weeks in the season in general. It's the same thing that goes for football players. You work for a local football team, and one of the things that I have a problem with is we have weightlifting all through the season. We stop weightlifting in September, or maybe a good program will keep their kids weightlifting through this football season, and they'll back everybody off, the Monday or the Tuesday before the game. Now, I understand if you want to back off your varsity starters, a few days early from the game, but if you're backing off your freshmen and sophomores who aren't going to see any playing time on Friday night, maybe they're going to play a JV game, which we really don't care about.
Right.
Let them train. These kids are tough and they're durable and they're going to recover. But if you keep backing them off, how many months of training have we lost in that period of time for kids that aren't even going to see the field?
Right.
Keep them training throughout the season. Let them be a little sore during their games. It's okay. We want them to be varsity performers later on in life at the highest level we can possibly get. So let's keep them training as the years go on.
Well, that's actually a conversation we had at the end of last season. I mean, we're a younger coaching staff. The head coach is, I think, a year older than me, so he's 27, 28 right now. And one of the things we talked about is having a weightlifting program installed before the season that keeps them lifting throughout the season.
Right, yeah.
And by the time championship season comes around, back them off a little bit so then that the kids are peaking a little bit.
Right.
They're at their prime, they're at their healthiest, and everything should work out. So that's the plan this year. We'll see how everything works out.
Yeah, I worked for one football team ever, and it was Keith Grabowski was the coach, and he basically gave me carte blanche to run that weight room however I wanted. He trusted me enough to do that. He never gave me input. All he wanted was a better tool, and I gave him that better tool, come the season time. But he would always have coaches in his ear telling him that we were doing some things wrong and that we should need to do it this way. And you look at these guys and they're like, have you ever trained hard in your life? I mean, most of these guys were in their 50s and 60s, and they didn't train in high school. They never did a weight training session themselves. Their weight training sessions that they did with their athletes were mediocre at best because they're just pulling things out of Flex magazine and trying to, institute them in a football setting. So if you have a good football coach, and it's going to take a little while for them to trust you, but they need to build that trust in you so they give you the chance to do what you do best instead of, putting the defensive line coach in there just because he's a big guy and they think that he knows what he's talking about. I told him flat out when I started, I didn't want to coach your offensive linemen. I'm not interested in any kind of game planning. Give me your weight room. I'll give you a better spear, for your team.
For sure.
Once we get into that, but the training athletes in the weight room is an art form in itself. It's not something that should be an afterthought. If you have a student athlete in a football program, in their weightlifting program, if they're doing volleyball, strength and conditioning, 99% of the time it's garbage, or it could be drastically improved upon. Sometimes it's downright dangerous what they have them do. And we get complaints from parents all the time who actually come in here to lift, and then they'll talk to their kid who's in a program at their high school and hear about this crazy stuff they're doing. And they know because they've been through here and gone through the training that there's something wrong. They shouldn't be doing it this way.
Yeah.
And then the coaches will always use well, you either train with me or you won't start. This is, again, another myth. No coach in their right mind is going to sit their best players for not training with you or training with someone else in the off season. I always suggest send your kids to these programs. Make sure they're not doing something stupid. As long as it's just a basic program that they're being supervised in, fine. But then bring them to us and we'll actually do the real work in here. Show up, pay your dues. But no coach is going to go, oh, here's my kid who is 6'5" and 280 pounds and can run a 4.7 40, but I'm not going to start him because he went to another coach for some extra work in the off season.
Yeah.
So don't let coaches, I tell kids, don't wear blind dog shirts anywhere. Don't tell coaches that don't lie to them, but don't advertise that you come here either. I don't need you to advertise for us. Just come here, get your training in, and then let them think that they, built this incredible athlete, and we'll all know different. But yeah, that's another thing you have to really watch out for. Give your kids a break in the off season. Let them get a good 4 or 5 months in of training, whether you break that up throughout the year or they get it in one chunk. But these year-round sports teams, no college coach is coming to your rec league softball games, and recruiting you. If you're good enough, you're going to play at the high school level, and they're going to spot you at the high school level.
Right. So kind of to summarize everything up, every topic that we hit upon. The first one was, what was it?
What athletes really need.
Yeah, what athletes really need, which is more of the generalized movements rather than the specified movements.
Specific movements shouldn't even come into play until you have a high-level athlete. You see these guys training on NFL Sunday with their bands and doing stuff on wobble boards and stuff. None of that stuff is necessary, especially for young athletes. Keep them lifting heavy and running and sprinting and jumping. That's the key.
Right, and then the second point we made was make sure that the coach knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Ask your coach who he's coached.
Yeah.
What were his accomplishments as an athlete? And I think one of the things we didn't talk about is who were their mentors. You know
right.
what I mean? So a lot of coaches, you can tell whether or not they know their shit by who they've been coached by themselves.
Yeah. And just because they're a pro athlete doesn't mean they know anything about training athletes.
Yeah. Yep. And then finally, we talked about
multiple seasons doing the same sport all season long. All
Give your kids a break.
Give your kids a break.
Give your kids a break.
And be realistic about your goals. I've had people in here before who've talked about their son who's going to go and play for the Florida Gators, and he's going to be a quarterback. And you look at this kid and you know what you're dealing with. yes, he may be a great athlete here at local Podunk High School, but be realistic. And if that kid wants to go and play Division III football, he may be a star there. Don't get these unrealistic expectations unless you just have a off the wall crazy phenom as an athlete. It's such a small minority of kids that go on and play college football or college volleyball or college softball at that Division I level, and then even more at those high name schools, the Floridas, the Florida States, the Ohio States. Don't get roped into that. Be skeptical always, and just have your kids training, and you be the dad and let them be the kid.
Cool.
So yeah, this was good. We'll do more of these. Look forward to we're going to be doing some technique training videos for Highland Games coming up, and I'm really excited about doing that because I don't think there's enough of them out there. We are slinging gear, so check out refinedsavage.com and buy t-shirts and hats on there. I'm really, really proud of the gear, especially this new line that's come out. The hats are awesome. The t-shirts, I'm already stealing t-shirts for myself because I like them so much, and they are meeting my standard of being the shirts that I want to get out of the laundry every day and put on because they are super soft and super comfortable.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
And the Instagram page.
And follow on Instagram. We're going to keep pushing content out. So if you like the content, if you think we should change something, let us know in the comment section on YouTube. Or if you want to see more content like this, let us know.
Yeah, Instagram is at the Refined Savage brand. So
yeah, you changed it on me. I had to
I
go through the YouTube channel.
It's growing every day. All right.
Alrighty.
Thanks a lot.